Well, I thought you were always waiting at the exact same spot. I only would know that because I've flown to your island 3 times in the same hour.
Dude, the bridge, it's my spot.
The welcome spot. And you
Hmm.
spent big money on that bridge,
I
so
did. I did. I gotta make sure I get my use out of it. All right, episode 5 of Heavily Invested. Here we are. Our guest today is Logan. Welcome, Logan.
what's up?
Now, we met our first year in college, and I was super blessed to have you and your friends on my hall, but I know that wasn't originally supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
We were supposed to have it where like you guys were kind of the hall next to us, but for whatever reason, it ended up that you guys joined our hall, which was super cool. Because as coming in as a transfer student, and so like everyone was constantly like, "Oh, like how's it feel to be a freshman?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm 20 and I like am not 18 out of high school."
Yep.
So it felt really cool to have older guys in my hall who had more life experience. It really, I think, helped my first year of time at school for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I came in as a transfer student as well. I had done two
Oh, okay.
years of community college first, so I was actually put on a hall with a bunch of freshmen
Mm,
my first year there, and which was fine. They were all like willing to do pranks and stuff, and I was able to really
yeah.
like get that college experience. But I can like totally understand the feeling of like being misunderstood as a
mm,
transfer student into
yeah.
college.
Yeah. Yeah. Even
So
orientation. I just remember being in orientation and like, man, I don't need to know any of this.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I know how to log on to an online
Right.
like system, and
Yeah.
I know how to not be with my parents for
Yeah.
more than 2 months.
Yeah. I think I said to Brandon, who was our RA, I told him like the first week, I was like, Brandon, I'm super frustrated. And he's like, why? I was like, the orientation that I sat through this whole week, the only thing I wanted was a tour of the campus, and they never gave us a tour of the campus.
Yep.
And so I was like, this is so ridiculous. And he ended up, I think, walking me around campus, which was cool. But
Which is so crazy because I until this moment right now, I didn't know that you were a transfer.
really,
Or I completely forgot. I mean, that's probably more likely, but I had no clue that you were a transfer.
yeah, I had done a year of community college, and then I wasn't sure if the college life was for me.
Yeah.
So I ended up working full time at a camp, doing like kind of a gap year type thing.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it. I want to
All right.
know what was the first video game you really invested time into? This is kind of like the start question. That's where I always start. But the not necessarily the first game you played, but the first one
Mhm.
you remember like really, putting time in.
Well, it's kind of like a mix. So growing up with video games, I was only like limited to playing them on weekends,
Yeah, okay.
um, which was like, of course, like annoying to me as a kid. But looking back, I understand it. I think like
Yeah.
the first games that I really like poured into were like the Need for Speed Underground 2,
Mm,
kind of those arcade racers,
okay.
um, which was like on the GameCube. I started playing like the Tony Hawk Pro Skaters and Mario Kart in the beginning, but you don't really like when you're a kid playing video games. It's just like you play for sensation, not for experience. I guess is the way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like those were games I poured into, and then those led into like Halo 3,
Yeah.
and eventually finding my sweetest love of Oblivion, and that's the one that I like really
Yeah.
poured into.
Yeah.
Um, so
No, rightly so. I mean, that game deserves our time and investment. That is
yeah,
a fantastic game. I like it's funny. We were just kind of saying this about replayability, but even I've beaten most of like the main quests of that game. Like I've done the Thieves Guild, I've done the Dark Brotherhood, but the stories are so good. Like I don't have a problem going back and doing them again.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I can totally understand that for sure. But
Yeah.
I like what you said as well with when you're a kid, it's not so much about the game itself. It's just about the experience,
Yeah.
which is so true. What would you say your favorite video game is? Would you say it's Oblivion?
Yeah. I think I could. I mean, it's that's like such a hard decision because
Mm-hmm.
it's, I don't know. It's like picking out your favorite food. You could say it's your favorite food, but it changes.
Yeah.
You know, your tastes change, but
Yeah.
it's the one game that I know I can always go back to
Mm,
and just relax, enjoy it,
yeah.
get this experience. And even though I might know exactly what's around the corner, and it's just such a, I don't know. I firmly believe Oblivion is the perfect game because it's a game that has like the, uh, it's easy enough for someone to walk into that's never played anything like it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also, if you really want to dive in, build like this crazy character, or
Yeah.
like do like hardcore investment into a game, it
Yeah.
has that too. And so that's what's so like special about that game. That, I mean, just in the Elder Scrolls gaming, you know, Morrowind before it was like way too technical for
Yeah.
like a guy to just stumble into it, and then Skyrim was like way too like surface level for someone to
Mm,
like like still go back and play it. And yeah, I'll play Skyrim every once in a while, but the only reason why I would want to go do that is because it's pretty.
yeah.
I guess is the idea behind that one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I totally understand that. I usually told people almost the same exact thing when I would tell them about the three games. I would use the example of armor in the games. So in
hmm
Morrowind, you could have different shoulder armor from different sets.
yeah,
Like it was so customizable, the game collectively that way. Then Oblivion, you had boots, legs, chest, head, and then Skyrim it was just really like boots, like torso, legs was kind of one thing. Like they
yeah,
really condensed it. Um, and I agree. I found if you've only played Oblivion on Xbox, you may think to yourself like, "Oh, it's a little limited once you've played through it." Like I've
hmm
had people tell me that. Um, but when I started playing on the computer, I saw all these mods and it was like these house mods with like crazy homes that people made, and then
hmm
there's like full quest lines, and I even think there's new like areas you can go to too. People made like whole kingdoms, um, which is just crazy.
it is.
So, uh, yeah, it's just so cool to see the creativity that people have put into a game that is. I mean, Skyrim is 9 years old at this point, which is
Yeah,
nuts.
it's
Um,
ridiculous.
that's crazy to think about.
hmm And it's cool how much modding has gone into that, and how you can actually go. They've like tried to mod certain cities from Oblivion into Skyrim, and like
Yeah.
I've always wanted to play like do that. I just haven't done that yet.
In that same vein, what would you say your favorite genre is? So since like picking a favorite game is so hard, if we're using the food analogy, people almost always you say what's your favorite food? They're like Chinese, and like that's not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
food; it's a genre of food.
Genre. Yeah.
So
My
let's
favorite
let's
palette.
yeah, there you go. Let's pick a genre of games. What do you think appeals to you the most?
Like that is such a like to me that's even more difficult, I
Ah,
guess.
okay.
Like um I mean like just in me explaining like the first game that I ever really poured into to get there, I had to describe, you know, arcade racing,
Right.
skateboarding,
Sure.
um like you know, like I'm a firm believer that like if you're going to be someone that plays games
Mm.
and really wants to get a full wide taste of that spectrum of like all these different flavors. You know,
Mm.
you can't just eat Chinese food all your life.
Yeah.
Um, it's difficult for me to narrow it down because like last week I was playing the new Need for Speed game.
Yeah.
Uh, right now I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, what do those have in common? Absolutely nothing.
Right, right.
Um, like, I don't know. I think, I mean, arcade racing will always be like one of my great loves.
Okay.
Like I love the Forza Horizon series.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously Need for Speed has really just screwed themselves up over the past several years, but those have always spoken to me. And
Yeah.
I like first person shooters. I've always loved the Halo series. Um, Call of Duty, not really.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what really is important to me, especially now as I'm getting older, and kind of moving away from like the competitive scene and like I don't know, like being such a tryhard in video games,
Yeah.
is the story.
Okay. Okay.
And so like if there's a game with a good story, I'm
Mm.
gonna love it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And that's what got me into like, Assassin's Creed in the beginning. It was like that was probably the best story I've ever experienced in a video game before. Just playing
Mm.
the first Assassin's Creed. Or
Yeah.
like or like with Oblivion, the first time I played it, it was just all about like helping my brother Martin out,
Yeah.
or like there's something to that just really takes a game that's good and makes it amazing. And
Yeah.
if there's a game that can immerse me in a story, then like that's where the money's at, man. That's what
Yeah.
it's about because you get connected emotionally.
Right.
And I love all games, and I'm not trying to put down games that don't have a story. Like, I love Rocket League,
Yeah.
and that has nothing in it that even points to some sort of narrative. Because it's like you're playing soccer with cars, and the crowds are just these like colored eggs, basically. It's like, but there's just something to getting lost in a story,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. I said this I think in maybe the first episode, but I being dyslexic,
Mm,
reading books was always a challenge. And so as a kid, I could never really get immersed into a book because
yeah,
it took me so long to read. Now I'm at a place where I'm pretty average when it comes to reading, but games drew me in so quickly because it was less reading and more involvement.
yeah,
And so I was able to, there's still reading that's a part of a good story for sure. But you play a game like Oblivion, almost I think that entire game is audioed, so you
yeah.
can, I mean, you don't have to read a single thing when you play that game story.
True. Yeah,
And so, um, I growing up just like got so immersed in games, and that's where I've been and where I'm at now is most of the games that I have on my shelf are story based,
yeah,
and those worlds I think will always have a grab or a pull on me, and I think that's why I look for the new Elder Scrolls game. I'll just say that I'm
yeah,
excited for that potential because I can't wait to see what story they're gonna come up with.
yeah. And how it connects to the story that you've been immersed in for the past, like almost 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah, for
but you can
sure.
also like just look at like when games became something bigger
Yeah,
is when they started introducing that narrative. And yeah, like Tetris was big and Frogger was big.
yeah,
Like what made Mario so special? He had this mission to go save the princess.
yeah,
And
yeah.
even like that's such like a small frame of a narrative to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's enough to like I gotta do this, I gotta
Yeah.
go do this thing. There's something greater happening here than just like lining up these bricks and feeling good about myself kind of thing.
Right, right, right. No, I think about Ocarina of Time, and when I was a kid, we had gotten our N64 game from somebody else, and so it already had a save file on there. So when I first
Mm-hmm.
played it, they had all of the medallions from the temples, and they had the Master Sword, and everything was already done. So I'd play the game and I'd be like, "Oh, this game is so fun!" And it wasn't until I think my older brother had either told me or I had just kind of stumbled upon it, I realized that that game was already beaten. And
Yeah.
so I went back in the game and made a new save file, and I was like, "What? There's so much to this game."
Yep.
And it's all because like I missed the whole story. I was just running around smacking enemies, not knowing that I wasn't actually playing the game.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with too with like Animal Crossing. It's like, cool, I've gotten KK to come out and play his
Mm.
concert.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I'm just stuck in this endless cycle of capitalism. You know, and there's not like an emotional
Right.
pull forward,
Right.
I
Yeah.
guess.
I'm in the same boat as you are right now. One of the things I'm hopeful for though is we're in the world now where, and we've already seen it in Animal Crossing, they can upload updates progressively.
Yep. Yep.
And as much as I hate like DLC based games, I don't want you to release a unfinished game and then be like, "Oh, here's DLC that finishes the game." Like,
Yep.
I don't want that lifestyle because that's garbage. But if Animal Crossing keeps doing it the way they've done it so far, I'll be happy. Where they're like, "Oh, here is Brewster," or here is like I asked when I first got the game, I was like, "Where the heck is Red?" And now he's in the
Yep.
game. So I have hope that they'll continue to produce more content. But I agree that like right now where I'm at, I mean I haven't, like I said to you earlier, I haven't really played in a while because I feel like
Mhm.
I've kind of accomplished my goals.
Yep. But isn't that
Uh,
such like an exciting thing about this new, like just the Switch
mm.
in general, this new generation for
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo is that they're finally at the point where they're doing DLCs. Like I think in a couple months or even just a month, we're gonna have the first Pokemon DLC,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is like, like I'm pumped for that
Yeah.
because you get to the end of a Pokemon game and there's so much emphasis when you get a Pokemon game. It's like, well, what's the like end game like?
Right.
Because if there's
Yep.
no like cool end game, then it just becomes mundane, boring. Like,
Yeah.
gotta fill out my Pokedex, and it's like that gets kind of boring after a while.
I think the first Pokemon game that I really was committed to the end game in was Diamond and Pearl.
Mm,
That one, there's like a handful of legendary Pokemon that you couldn't catch until you had like filled the current Pokedex.
okay.
And I think I had bought like a guide or something for it, and that's how I knew. But I
Mm,
was so excited. I was like, "This is so cool," because there's an actual goal, and there's a
yep.
reason to like fill my Pokedex as opposed to just like, pride.
Yeah.
um,
Totally.
and so yeah, I'm excited as well for that Pokemon DLC.
Mm,
And you're right. I think we are finally in this kind of new age. I was talking earlier with someone about the Switch having indie games on it,
yeah.
and how cool I think that is too. That they're kind of getting into that world for sure.
And it's almost like with the Switch, it's like so much indie games
Yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Like you go into the store and you don't recognize 75%
mm-hmm.
of the titles because it's just all like independent developers
Right,
doing whatever they want to do. And it's such a cool thing for Nintendo to finally be,
yeah,
I don't want to like say stepping out of Japan, but like
yeah,
stepping out of Japan.
right, right.
Um,
Yeah, I no, I know exactly what you mean. And I was saying this. I was talking to one of my other guests about this, so I'll only mention it briefly. But I loved the so many of the indie games that we see on the Switch are games that I have on my computer, but they're very simple games. And I don't want to
mm,
sit at my computer to play them. Like I want I love that they're on the Switch because it's like a 16-bit like RPG game. Like I don't want to sit on
yep.
my computer and use my keyboard to play this game. I'd rather just like have my Switch and be, I don't know, like on the back porch or something.
Yep.
Um and so I there's such a market for that, and I really appreciate Nintendo for being open to the indie market for the first time.
Oh, for sure.
Um, so
It's hard. It's hard to get a Switch nowadays. Have you been reading
yeah,
about that?
yeah. I was just talking to a friend of mine. He was gonna buy one before like the whole quarantine thing happened,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about it for like a couple of weeks. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Target." Like this was almost like 2 or 3 days before the whole world shut down. He's like, "I'm going to
Yeah.
Target. I'm gonna buy one," and he said he went to like 2 Targets and couldn't find any before the quarantine. Then we all got quarantined, and I was like, "Eric, you missed your chance.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you're getting one now."
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading an article and they were saying you're most likely not going to be able to get a Switch at like normal price until
Mm,
after the holidays.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And like I see, I mean, the listeners can go on Amazon right now and type in
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch and see one for, you know, like lowballing at
Right.
$500
Right.
for something that, you know, even like the original Switch before they had like the battery upgrade and stuff.
Yeah.
That's like maybe 250.
Right. Which
It's
is
like that's
nuts.
what I bought my Switch for. I got it
Right.
used for $250.
Right.
And like to think that someone is online selling one right now for $600 is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It just really shows like the times right now and supply and demand and
Yeah. Yeah, my
but
older brother, he bought one of the Animal Crossing ones
mm,
and he didn't open it. Yeah, I know. And so he's really like we had a conversation yesterday where he's really juggling. He's like, "Dan, I can get 850 for this on eBay right now." And I'm like,
yep.
"Oh my gosh, like it's so crazy."
Yeah. I mean,
Um
I think like the important thing with that one though is like he might want to just hold on to it
yeah.
because there's such a low production that there might not
Yep.
even end up like being that many of them down
Right.
the road, and there will be a collector's edition,
Right.
rare almost.
Yeah, I was so bummed
Um,
because he had set it up where he bought one in the store, but he had one in his cart online.
mhm.
And so he told me, he's like, "Hey, I have two. Like, do you want to buy one?" And I was like, I don't need it, but I would like to get one for the same kind of reason that I thought it would be a collector's thing.
Yeah,
And he came to my room the next day, and he's like, "They took it out of they canceled my order." I was like, "What do you
yeah,
mean?" And he's like, "I went in and I had an email from them saying we canceled all online orders." And I was like, "What?"
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I was bummed because I don't have one. But you're right. We had the same conversation yesterday where I was like, "Yeah, Glenn, don't sell it because
Yeah.
you're gonna get to the point. It might not be for a couple years, but it's gonna be a collector's item for sure."
Yeah.
Um,
Just store it somewhere nice and
yeah.
dry
Yep.
and
Yep.
just wait. It's super cool to see those things that like dive bombed in price. You know, like there was a time when you
Yeah.
could go get a PS2 for $30.
Right. Right.
And like I know like in 5 years they're gonna be worth more. I don't know about like a PS2 because
Sure.
there are so many of them, but like like a 64
Right. Right.
it's like something you want, or like even like the original like a Smash Bros for the
Right.
64 or Melee.
Yeah.
It's cool to see those becoming so like collectible.
Yeah. It's hard too because I think about it often when I buy games now. Like I
Mhm.
thought, should I buy a second hard copy of Animal Crossing because in 40 years is having a hard copy of this game going to be a strange occurrence?
Yeah,
Um, so I do try to think that way, forward thinking as well.
yeah,
When I was in Japan, I was there for 6 months, and a big thing I did there was I'd go to these secondhand stores, and I mean, because all of the technology is produced there, there are
mhm.
just bins of Super Nintendos, bins of N64s, of GameCubes, like all this stuff. And some of them are region locked. So, like, Super Nintendo is region locked. You can't play. The cartridges are different.
Okay,
But, like, I found out PlayStation 2's, the Japanese versions, are also region locked. But people want the Japanese versions because there's Japanese PlayStation 2 games that never came out in America.
yeah,
And so I ended up shipping home two 50-pound boxes of gaming stuff.
yeah,
Just because, like, I knew both that I wanted to have some of it and that I could sell it and people would want it.
yeah.
Um, but
And like especially with like the speed running community,
oh yeah,
like most games are played in Japanese because it's faster.
yeah, yeah,
So
it's
if you want
true.
to play any of those games on those consoles, like you have to be able to source that for yourself and get
Yeah, no, that's so
Japanese
true.
console.
So in this vein of topic, when you are buying a game, do you wait for them to go on sale? Are you a guy who pre-orders? Like, what's that process for you?
I mean, it's changing. Like it's changed so much through my life because when I was a kid, I would rarely ever get a game new.
Sure.
And then into adulthood, like through college. I mean, I didn't even play games that much in college.
Yeah.
Uh, but now that I have like a career and a salary,
Mm-hmm.
I can buy games like as they're newer.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is like my timing with buying games newer is that I'm getting burned constantly.
Oh,
So, like
interesting.
I was like I shouldn't even say this because it's going to go on the internet, but I was a sucker who pre-ordered Anthem
Mm.
because I was looking forward to Anthem for such a long time, and I should have just listened to the red flags because I was watching videos like as it was like,
Right.
we're a month away and like we should be concerned about this game, and it was like, oh man, I'm so excited for it kind of thing, and like, yeah, it was super cool, it was fun, and then I played the campaign, and I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever like played in my life. Like the combat was fun,
Right.
flying around in your own like unique custom Iron Man suit, basically.
Right.
Of course, that's awesome,
Yeah.
but like, it was bad.
Right.
And so I
Right.
get burned by this thing, and like, it just sucked because I put all that money into
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things now that whenever I buy a game, it's usually a little bit after it comes out, or
Mm.
like I have assurance. So like I
Yeah.
knew that I could pre-order Animal Crossing
Right. Right.
because they had the balls to be able to come out in whatever November or whatever it was
Yeah.
last year and say, hey guys, this game isn't ready,
Yeah.
sorry, it's coming out in March.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, like I respect that so much,
Yeah.
and because of that, I'm gonna pre-order it
Yeah.
because I know that when this game comes out, it's gonna be complete,
Right.
it's gonna be clean,
Right.
and I can trust them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's one of those that like I still pre-order games if I can have some level of faith.
Sure.
Like I pre-ordered Borderlands 3, but that's because Borderlands 2 is probably like
Yeah.
my top 5,
Right.
almost like my Mount Rushmore of games.
Yeah.
And that one was like okay, it was like pretty good. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like way better than Anthem. But it's one of those that like Cyberpunk, I think it's 2077, I think. When that comes out, like I'm going to wait a couple days at least.
Yep. Yep.
Like I'm so excited for that game, yes. But I'm not going to pre-order that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm in the same exact boat as you. And that's a great example of a game that I'm going to wait a couple days for. Because the game that I didn't get burned on, luckily, it was by sheer luck. I was waiting for No Man's Sky for years. Yep. And I think I was in Japan when the game came out. So like I couldn't have bought it. I didn't have my computer. Yeah. And so when I got home from Japan, because I didn't do a whole lot of PC gaming because I didn't have it and I worked a lot and for whatever reason. But I came home and I talked to my best friend and I was like, dude, did you get it? Like, is it great? And he's like, he just sent me a link to a video.
Yeah.
And it was just like a video just trashing the game. And I was like, a small part of me was just devastated because like this game was going to be so good. But then another part of me was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't waste $60.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
What's cool about that is like the redemption that's come from No Man's Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a good game now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like people swear by that game now, and it's like okay, like that's good to hear that. And like Anthem is trying to do that. They're trying to pull it out of their butts and like try to take this turd and make it into gold.
Right.
Which like has the mechanics for that.
Yeah.
But just like if you go online and read an article right now about, like, I remember there was a guy who was on the production team for that game.
Yeah.
Basically put out like a statement on it, and it was like just like a scathing review of how BioWare handled this whole thing.
Mm.
But it's just cool that like No Man's Sky, after all that they put their fans through
Yeah.
and the hole that they dug themselves into, that they've been able to take a game and make like a good game out of it now. And from that, they're going to be able to take that good game and, you know, go into space with it, I guess, no pun intended, you know, like reach for the sun
Yeah, right.
and
Right.
have like an amazing game with an amazing community
Yeah.
because they were able to take the idea of something and just kind of put their heads down and just get to work on it. And so there's hope in that, like that maybe one day Anthem can pull itself out of its hole. But like, if I was to tell anybody, don't pre-order games
Mm.
in today's day and age. Don't pre-order games
Yeah.
unless it is like Nintendo, because you know Nintendo isn't part of this Americanized machine
Right.
where it's about, you know, we're gonna take a game, we're gonna pump it out quick. You know, like
Yeah.
we can't miss out on the steam of like people being interested in this
Right.
game.
Right.
You know, like Anthem was like, everyone was like, oh, cool, 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 cool. And then they were like, we got to put it out. We got to put it out.
Yep.
And so they put it
Yep.
out and it's like, oh, this sucks. You know? Well, like Nintendo, it's like, hey, we got another Mario Kart coming out in a year.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like I'm excited. Like I played Mario Kart when I was a kid. So, you know, it's going to be like a good game.
Right.
But if you're going to buy, like, if you're going to pre-order a Call of Duty,
Yeah.
watch out, man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
My warning to the
yeah.
to the new generation of
to
gamers.
the new generation. I love it. There's two really interesting things that I want to pull out of that. So one, I'm really interested in, because I think you put it very well. It's almost a cultural difference with Japan versus American game companies, and I mean I saw this when I was there, but I think it's very common knowledge that Japanese culture is very honor based.
Yeah.
And so when you produce something, like your personal honor is on the line.
Yeah.
So it's more honorable to say, hey, this isn't ready. It will be ready in March than it would have been to release Animal Crossing as not a finished game and, you know, to get crazy backlash on it. And you can see that in a lot of different things. I'm not a drinker personally, but I have a lot of friends who love Japanese whiskey. And they think that Japanese whiskey is so much better for the same reason. That it's like they really commit to what they do. And so, yeah, I for sure see that. The other thing I wanted to pull out was it's hard to trust a developer. Like, so did you ever play Brink?
No, I did not play Brink.
Okay. So I saw Brink on the store shelf, and it was like $10, and that should have been my first red flag. You know, like what Bethesda game is $10?
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, Bethesda made a first-person shooter. Like, this has got to be great.
I can trust this.
Yeah, right. And I get home, and I play like one round of this game, and I just remember thinking, like, nothing about this experience is enjoyable. Like no part of it was an enjoyable experience. And so that was a big turning point for me where I was like, okay, even if the developer produces great content, I can't just blindly trust that they're always going to put out something good.
Yeah.
Which was huge. That was crazy for me. Because I mean, every other Bethesda game I played was great. I mean, Fallout was awesome. Oblivion.
But even they are starting to go down that track of like with 76, Fallout 76. You know, like that game was slammed to oblivion when it, like, no pun intended again. Like when it came out, like people like were so upset with them.
Right.
And even now people are still upset about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It like there's an important thing to the relationship between a developer and a player, a purchaser.
Yeah.
There has to be a trust there, and it's like I'm concerned for the next like mainline ESO game because Bethesda has been, not doing a really great job lately.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
it makes me nervous for Elder Scrolls 6 when that comes out. Like
Yeah.
what are they is it going to be pushed out? And obviously they're taking their time on it,
Right.
and that's great. But like there's going to be a point where they're
Yeah.
going to have to put out a game,
Right.
and it makes me nervous because
Yeah.
I don't want it to suck.
Right. Right. I'm in the same boat. I wonder too, at what level, because okay, so now we're in this technological world where you can put out a patch to a game
Mm-hmm.
and it can just be seamless. You get a notification, you download it, game's updated.
Yeah.
At what level is a game, like a bad game, just stays a bad game? So I didn't play Anthem too much, so I don't have first-hand experience with that game specifically. But
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. But I think about, I'll use Destiny as an example. I played
Yep.
Destiny when it came out.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people trashed the heck out of that game, and then Destiny, they made all of these changes to this game,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's semi playable.
Yep.
And I get that from like a human standpoint. Like, this is broken, it should be fixed so that it's better.
Yeah.
But N64, you didn't have that option.
No.
Like, you couldn't just say, okay, everyone hated our game, let's recall them all, let's fix every cartridge and send them back out.
Yeah, send in your Super Mario 64 cartridge.
Yeah,
so
right, right.
Hot fix Yoshi.
Right. So I wonder, like, do you think that the world that we live in now, as much as like it's beneficial that we have this advancement, do you think it's hindering game production?
Well, I definitely think it's it's almost like a crutch of sorts. Is that like I could push this product out, and like I might get some backlash because every game gets backlash.
Right.
But there's the knowledge of like, but I could just put out a hot patch for it in a couple weeks, covering up this
right
hole that was there before. And I mean, like, imagine being in that business in this day and age with, like, technology is changing so fast right now. So you produce a game for all these years, and then by the time you put it out, I feel like there's something to that in the fact that, like, you put out this game, but now the technology that it was on is not really the best anymore, and so your game's not even that cutting edge.
Right.
So do you just try to force something out to get it out there with speed so that it's like it's up to date?
Yeah.
And then you just try to cover up the holes.
Interesting.
And like Nintendo doesn't have to worry about that because the Switch is good, but it's like, when it comes down to it, it's got the power of like, almost like it's a little bit better than like a 360, an Xbox 360,
Right.
And so they have lower benchmarks that all these indie games and these other games have to reach. That's why you can play like, Diablo 3 on it.
Right.
And so it's different than like having to put out something in today's day and age. I do feel like it's like a major crutch, but I feel like it's important for a developer to be able to realize that, like, at the core of their game, if they've got something worth hanging on to, that they keep pushing forward with it. And like that's like the idea with No Man's Sky. It's like, at the core of their game, what was the good thing? You could fly to all these other planets, and it was beautiful, and you're going to be the only person to ever go to that planet. And so that's like such an exciting thing. Or like with Destiny, like I'll always say this: Destiny's gunplay, like the feeling of the guns, it's like, to me, the best I've ever felt in a game.
Sure.
And so you hang on to that mechanic, and you move with that mechanic and build around that. Like, that's
interesting. Yeah.
That's what's going to bring you to success. But it's so difficult. Like, I would hate to be like, of course I would love to be a game developer, but I would hate to be a game developer just because the pressure of it.
Yeah, it's such a different world. Like, I would love at some point to get to a place where I could have a conversation like this with a game developer,
Yeah.
because I've never thought of it from that perspective, in which you really could have a game that is finished, in air quotes,
Yeah.
but then when you put it out, the technology has reached a place where your finished game now looks like garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy, but it's so true.
hmm
um
And maybe
yeah,
that's why people like why game developers are like so keen to just recreate an old game,
yeah, yeah,
because it's like there's almost so much money in nostalgia.
right, right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
I
i
don't know.
i think people have been asking for like an open world Legend of Zelda game since Ocarina of Time. And
Yeah.
so, like, when Breath of the Wild hit the market, people lost their crap
Yeah.
because it's what we've been asking for.
Yeah.
um and I think my opinion on why it's so good is because it's what people wanted. They have always had a, like, Legend of Zelda games, the art style has always changed. So it never
Yeah.
really mattered what the art style was or
Yeah.
the graphics, because it was always different. Um so from a technological standpoint, it didn't have cutting edge graphics because that was never the point.
Yeah.
And the mechanics are what made that game great. So it really
Yeah.
hit every single thing that we've been talking about, where like they really stuck to the game mechanics, which you got in the first like 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
All of your tablet abilities. And so they stuck with that. They
hmm
didn't care about having cutting edge graphics, and they gave the fans what they've been asking for.
Yes, and that is like the most important thing that you can do is like
Right.
it's like when you think of like if someone before Breath of the Wild was to ask a Zelda fan,
Yeah.
like what would you want to see? And it's like, it'd be so cool as if you could just like free roam, and there's all these options for weaponry, and there's
Right.
like all this like the different armors and like all these towns, and it's
Yeah.
just like it doesn't have to be like graphically amazing,
Right.
but I want it to be beautiful and
Right.
breathtaking. And
Yeah.
that's what they did. They
Yeah.
took what like the biggest dreams of a Zelda fan
Mm-hmm.
are like the like that's the same with Pokemon too. It's like
Yeah.
what do you want to do? I want to be able to fight with my friends against other Pokemon. I want to
Right.
have places where I can just run around and have like an actual third person view that's not like, sky down,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's why those games are like above and beyond Mario Odyssey. What
Right.
do you want to do? I want to like interact with other humans.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, cool, we'll do that. Yeah, like we'll make that happen.
Right. Right.
Like that's why those games are like, I don't know, there's something special about it. It's because they still have that like the thing that made me go wow as a child whenever
Yeah.
it wasn't about the story. It was just about like the feeling of, riding my skateboard really fast down a street was
Right.
like the most amazing feeling to me.
Yeah.
And so it still has that, but they've just built on it in such a smart, intuitive, and that, like you could say healthy way. Like, I don't know.
I remember as a kid playing Wind Waker, I said to my older
hmm
brother, like, I vividly remember this. I said, Glenn, I would love it if these weapons that we get from the enemies we kill, if I could just like put them in a backpack.
Yeah.
Because you kill like the crazy armored enemy, and he has that giant sword, and I'm like, man, I wish I could freaking carry this on my boat and bring it to the next island or whatever. And that's what they did in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I for sure that
Yeah.
it hits all the qualities.
Yeah. Or
Um,
even like with like Skyrim,
yeah.
you're like in Oblivion, the before you go and close the big gate of
Mm,
Oblivion, they have this part where you're just fighting like droves of enemies with good guys all around you, and it
yeah.
like feels like an actual like battlefield, and you're like, wow, I'd really love to experience that like in an expanded format. And then in Skyrim they have the whole Civil War line where
Yeah.
you're fighting like, and even though that was like, I could say that they could have done that better
Sure.
because it was a little choppy. There was some Like it
Like,
wasn't the best,
yeah,
but they
yeah,
still got the essence of what that was like,
right,
and it felt really cool,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. There's a kind of blurry line as a game
Mm.
producer. It seems like you want to make what the audience wants, but at the same time, Zelda, Mario, Sonic, like the big names, somebody came up with those ideas, and there was no one saying, "I want a blue hedgehog that runs really fast."
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
um,
there was a vision.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a hard line now where these producers have to make games that, or developers, I should say, that both fit what the audience wants, but also follows the vision. And I think that's why we see less new games in the sense of like new ideas or like
Yeah. So true.
intuitive games, um, because it's less risky to produce a quality Zelda game than it is to produce a brand new IP.
Yeah, it's true. Or it's cheaper to, like it's you're gonna get money out of making what are they called? The games with like PUBG and Fortnite.
Oh yeah, Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
get money making a game like that. You
right,
don't even have to, like what you see with Apex. It's
right.
like you don't even have to have a press release for it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, oh, here's this game we put out. It's free. You can play it, and it's like they make billions of
right,
dollars from it.
right.
You know, it's it's and that I think that goes back to the. And I am such a Call of Duty hater, and I'm sorry if you're a fan of
No,
Call of
no, you're
Duty
fine.
or if anybody listening is a fan of Call of Duty, but it goes back to the fact that they had a successful thing in the beginning, and yeah, Call of Duty was like so cool. Modern Warfare was so cool, and like those first games were so cool, and they
Yeah.
took it and they recycled it and they recycled it and they recycled it
Yep.
and they recycled it. By the end, people bought the games because they wanted to play the new Call of Duty game, but they
Right.
hated themselves for it almost, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's there is such like a fine line, and like I totally get what you were saying earlier. It's just like you want to be able to push the game in a new direction
Right.
while remembering the places that it's come from,
Right. Yeah.
and that's so difficult. Like I can't that's it. Like I said it before already. It's like I'm just so happy I'm not a developer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just such a gray line. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
One, how did gaming change for you when you got married?
So like the biggest thing was like it's just the balance. Like there was a dance in the beginning of like
Mm,
when is my time, and like when do I dedicate time
yeah.
for her kind of thing. And so it's one of those like if I ever need to go do something like this, like the thing that gets pushed away first is video games. But it's
Mm,
something that like she knows it's something that I invest my money into. It's something that
right.
like so I have like a little like almost like allowance where I can buy a game and buy a new controller or whatever I need to
Yeah.
do. And I think like for people out there that are about to get married and are like concerned about like gaming taking a hit,
Yeah.
is I think it's important to be able to explain to your significant other like the importance of it, and
Mm,
even if they don't understand what it is, finding the thing that they love to do and the thing that they escape in and comparing it to that. So like
okay.
one of the big reasons why I play video games is because I can talk to my friends that are in North Carolina or in Georgia, or my brother who's in Vancouver, or like,
Right.
and so it's a social thing for me. And so
Yeah.
if when I went to my wife Erica and I said to her, like in the same way that you talk to your mom on the phone, or like they use an app called Marco Polo where you send like little short videos to each other, just talking. It's just basically talking, and
Yeah.
it's like different from Snapchat, and so that's how they communicate. And it's not something that I do, but I understand why she does that. It's a social thing, and it's a mental thing. And so when I was finally able to communicate that well, clicked and she got like,
Mm,
she's like, okay, this is just his way of unplugging. It's not him putting it over top of me.
right. Right.
It's not, and it's his way of like talking to his friends or like talking to his brother.
Yeah.
And when that connected, it made sense. And I
Yeah.
also think there's gonna be time like in the beginning of my marriage, I didn't play video games that much because I had to show
Yeah.
she was more important than
Right.
this.
Right.
But once that was communicated well, and she understood like that I needed to escape a little bit,
Yeah.
it all, it'll work out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think like, if you use if you substitute that story with a different like item, like golf,
mhm.
if you're
Yeah,
like, I just got married and all I did was play golf all day, like, of course it's going to be a terrible way to start your marriage.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, I think it's great to solidify what's important, and then the verbal understanding of like, this is something that means so much to me because of these reasons. And
yeah.
I remember, it's funny, I expressed that same thing to my mom. This was years ago, but I
Hmm.
was playing on Xbox Live, and I think we were playing like zombies or something. And it was me and my best friend, and we were playing for like, I don't know, 3 hours or something. And I
Yeah,
think I was still in high school. My mom was like, "Man, like, don't you think you played too much? Like this, the other thing, give me a hard time." And I said, "Mom, on Fridays when I go to so and so's house and I sleep over, like, what do you think we're doing when I'm there?"
yeah,
Like we're shooting zombies online from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m.
yeah,
Um, and so like it's no different. It just seems weird that I'm in my room by myself, but really I'm having a good time with my best friend who I haven't seen in a couple weeks.
yeah. You're
Um,
surrounded by all your friends.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's huge for sure. That kind of verbal communication is important, no doubt.
and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
If there's like a suggestion for marriage, it's just talk about it, and
yeah, yeah,
you know you can figure it out. So,
yeah, for sure. All right, and then last question I've got for you.
okay.
Um, of all the games you played, what virtual world has affected your real world the most?
So I mean, I have like, okay, there's a couple answers for these, and I think this question, it's a very interesting question
Mm,
because your very favorite game may not apply to this,
yeah,
because like Oblivion, though it's my favorite game, it doesn't really apply to this because I'm not walking around seeing like alien ruins or like, and I'm not living in imperial times.
bummer.
So like the first game that pops into my head, which is like kind like is I've two that I
Sure.
have an answer for this one, but the first one is Mirror's Edge,
Okay.
and it's for like when I'm playing a certain game. I guess that is what is like moving through my mind. It kind of
Mm,
affects the lens that I'm seeing the world through. And so
yeah.
like Mirror's Edge is one of those games that when you're playing it, you start to see the world as this everything is accessible. Like you can
Yeah.
climb there, you can go there.
Huh.
Um, I guess it just changed my lens a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain with that one. And then I guess I have three, but I'll just fly through these real quick.
No,
Is
that's totally fine.
the other one is like the Need for Speed games,
Yeah.
because we live in this. If you're in a first world country, or you see the world as like it's roads, everywhere's roads.
Yeah.
So you think in your mind like, oh man, this like road over here would be like great for a racetrack kind of thing like that. And I think that
I
was like
love it.
major for me as a kid, was like seeing the world through that lens, and like it's real. You
Yeah.
see some of those cars like on the road, and you think like, wow, that's real life. Like
Yeah.
something to that. And then the last one, and this one is to me like the funniest of them, is the Red Dead Redemption games. And it's not because I'm playing this one right now, but like when I played the first one, I didn't play Red Dead Revolver, but when I played Red Dead Redemption,
Okay.
I thought like a cowboy,
Dude, I love it.
and you feel like a badass, and
I
like,
love it.
and there's like almost like a confidence that comes from that. Like,
Yeah.
you say what you want to say in a
Yep.
manly way with respect.
Yeah.
And like that almost comes from those games, and it's like, I don't know, it's like that's like a really cool thing about those Red Dead Redemption games, is that they almost like inspire you in a way. I don't know.
Yeah. No, dude. I mean, like, you gotta think, like, so I asked this question because as a person who's played games really since his brain started functioning,
Yeah.
I know they affect me on some level. I'm
Yeah.
not one of those moms who's like, if you play shooter games, you're gonna shoot people. Like,
Yeah.
I don't take it to that degree. But no matter what you do, it has an impact on you as a person. Like,
Yeah.
if you sit in your house and read books all day, that has an impact on you.
It's true.
And I use books as an example sometimes because I'll read like a medieval fantasy novel, and then I'll start talking in that kind of like dialect.
Yes.
Like, I'll use like fantasy words.
Mhm.
And so I totally get what you mean about Red Dead Redemption. And yeah, that's why I asked the question, because I think, like, whether or not you consider yourself a hardcore, a casual, or like, part-time gamer or whatever,
Mhm.
like, the games you play, they impact you in some way.
Yeah.
And so I love to hear how people have been impacted by the games they play.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Logan, thank you so much. This was a
Mhm.
blast, dude. I
Yeah.
loved talking to you. Well,
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It was really great. Maybe we'll talk about stuff after Cyberpunk comes out. We can
oh yeah, I love
review our
that.
choices.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or the
We'll
next
do
time I
like,
get burned, I'll let you know.
yeah, yeah. We'll do like an addendum to this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
The where are they now?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching episode 5. Me and Logan, I think, had a great conversation about what it might take to be a game developer. Neither of us really has firsthand experience there, but definitely a challenge to produce and develop games, and there's a for sure kind of gray area in how to make a good game. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment on what you felt, what you thought. And like I've said in past episodes, if there's questions you want me to ask, feel free. Leave a comment, and I'd love to add that into future videos. I want some dialogue between me and the listeners. And if you've got a question, why not post it for me, and I'll be sure to give credit where credit's due. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.